Families are hard. Sometimes they can be a great blessing. Families can be the community that loves us and nurtures us and cares for us. And yet sometimes it's in our families that we experience the deepest wounds and the most difficult trauma. Family is just complicated. Whether that's the biological family we didn't choose, we're just born into, or the family we do choose as we grow older, those relationships with people we draw close to. It becomes complicated, discerning how to love one another in a family, and how to love and stay in loving relationship while still keeping my own integrity and my own values. How can our faith help us navigate loving relationships that are so complicated? Where is God in the mess of our family? And how can God's love equip us to love one another in those family relationships? Welcome to Work in Progress.
Does your house have a welcome mat? Or did you have one growing up? These are so often a symbol of family and home, whether we realize it or not. Places that we pause to wipe our feet before we go in, or we pass on our way before we go out for the day. They're places that we drop off gifts, we stand with anxiety before we enter in. For better or worse, they are a symbol of family. And I feel like the story of the prodigal in Luke's gospel in chapter 15 explores this mess and beauty of family all so well. So let's take a listen in. There was a man who had 2 sons, and the younger son said to his father, "Give me the share of the property that will belong to me." And so the father divided his property between them. A few days later, the younger son gathered all he had and traveled to a distant country. There he squandered it in dissolute living. Hearing this story again, can't you just imagine the younger son leaving all that he had behind, kind of leaving the welcome mat in the dust? We don't know if he ever hoped to return again. His actions sure didn't seem like it. He was pretty much saying to his father, "You are dead to me." We don't know what he planned on doing with this inheritance that he had. All we knew that he was gone. So often I feel like there are places in life that we can't wait to get out of. But do we ever really think about the repercussions of our actions? How those ripple effects affect other people in our lives? This son was going, gone, until he wasn't. So let's listen back into the story. A severe famine took place, and he began to be in need. The younger son hired himself out to someone from that country, who sent him to the field to feed the pigs. He would have been happy to eat their food, but no one gave him anything. But when he came to himself, he thought, "How many of my father's hired hands have bread enough and to spare? But here I am dying of hunger. I will get up and say to my father, 'I have sinned against heaven and before you. I'm no longer worthy to be called your son. Treat me like a hired hand.' So he set off and went to his father." Can you imagine, after blowing off your father, after saying, "You are dead to me, give me your inheritance," going back? I wonder what that would be like to stand on the welcome mat, to be rehearsing your speech, wondering how you would be welcomed in, if you would be welcomed in. Or perhaps you are more like the father, waiting on that welcome mat, worried about your son who is left. How long do you wait? How long do you stand there wondering what happens next? Where is the love in all of this? So let's hear what happens again. While he was still far off, his father saw him and was filled with compassion. He ran and put his arms around him and kissed him. The son said to the father, I have sinned against heaven and before you. I'm no longer worthy to be called your son. But the father said to his workers, bring out a robe, a ring, and sandals for his feet. Get the fatted calf and kill it. Let us eat and celebrate, for this son of mine was dead and is alive again. He was lost and is found. This welcome home is more than anything I could imagine. How was the father's first response not, I told you so, I warned you what you would do with all of that money? How was he not angry? And yet he welcomes the son in with open arms. I feel like sometimes family is the hardest to love because they can hurt the most. And yet through this story, we learn that God's love is not always like our love. We learn from God's love how we can possibly try to love each other. We are then open to love family in a whole new way. And yet this grace-filled love for family isn't always easy to hear. So let's see how the story finishes. For the elder son was in the field, and he heard music and dancing. He called to one of the workers and asked what was going on. The worker replied, your brother has come and your father has killed the fatted calf because he is safe and sound. Then the son became angry and refused to go in. His father came out and pleaded with him. But he answered his father, listen, for all these years I've been working like a slave for you, and I never disobeyed. Yet you've never given me anything to celebrate with my friends. But when this son of yours came back, who devoured your property, you killed the fatted calf. Then the father said to him, son, you are always with me, and all that is mine is yours. But we had to celebrate and rejoice, because this brother of yours was dead and has come to life. He was lost and has been found. The welcome mat in this story has been getting pretty good use up to this point. The son leaving, the father waiting, the father running, the son returning, and now the elder son refusing to even step foot in that house again. And all these comings and goings, the messiness of family really comes through. And yet we learn about God's love in the midst of it all. A love where grace abounds. A love where we are told that we are always welcome home. A love that we receive that is sometimes hard to give in return. A love that we know because God first loved us. That no matter where we go or come from, we are always welcome home. Thanks be to God.
Ramblers in the wilderness, we can't find what we need. We get a little restless from the search and get a little worn down in between. Like a bull chasing the matador, is a man left to his own schemes. Everybody needs someone beside him, shining like a lighthouse from the sea. Brother, let me be your shelter, never leave you all alone. I can be the one you call when you're low. Brother, let me be your fortress when the night winds are driving on. Be the one to light the way, bring you home. Face down in the desert now, there's a cage locked around my heart. I found a way to drop the keys when my failures were. Now my hands can't reach that far. I ain't made for rivalry, I can never take the world alone. I know that in my weakness I am strong, but it's your love that brings me home. Brother, let me be your shelter, never leave you all alone. I can be the one you call night winds are driving home. Be the one that lights the way, bring you home. And brother, let me be your shelter, never leave you all alone. I can be the one you call when you're low. Brother, let me be your fortress when the night winds are driving home. Be the one to light the way, bring you home. Be the one to light the way, bring you home.
Hear, O Israel, the Lord our God, the Lord is one. Love the Lord your God with all your heart and with all your soul and with all your strength.
There was a man who had 2 sons. The younger of them said to his father, "Give me the share of the property that will belong to me." So he divided his property between them.
These commandments that I give you today are to be on your hearts.
A few days later, he gathered all he had, traveled to a distant country where he squandered his property in dissolute living. But when he came to himself, he said, "I will get up and go to my father and say to him, 'I have sinned against heaven and before you. I am no longer worthy to be called your son.'"
Impress them on your children. Talk about them when you sit at home and when you walk along the road, when you lie down and when you get up.
But the father saw him while he was still far off and was filled with compassion. He ran to him, put his arms around him, and kissed him. Now the elder son was in the field, and when he heard the celebration, he refused to go into the house.
Tie them as symbols on your hands and bind them on your foreheads. Write them on the door frames of your houses and on your gates.
The father said to him, "Son, you are always with me, and what is mine is yours. But we had to celebrate and rejoice, because this brother of yours was dead and has come to life. He was lost and has been found."